Hello again, and today we're going to be talking about Chapter 1 material. In the table of contents here, we're going to be doing definitions, talking about sampling, and most of this video is going to be on frequency and frequency tables. Okay, we'll also look at experimental design and ethics. We'll talk a little bit about that. But mostly you're going to be reading about most of this thing, most of these items. You're just going to read through, take notes on the definitions and what they mean so that you can answer questions about them. Tonight or today on this video, we're going to talk about mostly how to make a frequency table, because that's going to be what most of the homework is going to be on for Chapter 1. So when you're looking through this, make sure you download the book. Open it up. You want to go to Chapter 1. You want to read through the book and look at the highlighted words and make sure that you understand those definitions and what they are. So like the first thing they talk about is the science of statistics and what data is. And they talk about key terms. So you'll see all of these key terms here. And if you miss something along the way while you're reading, you can always go to the end of the chapter and they will be listed again. So at the end of the chapter, go through this. Here are the key terms again. They're just, they'll be in alphabetical order, not in order as you've read them. So all of these terms will be throughout the that chapter, and they'll be highlighted, and they'll be highlighted here. So if you miss something, you can always go to the end and look it up. Also, in this section at the end where it gives a summary, they will also, if there's any formulas that you're going to need in the chapter or that they're given in the chapter, they'll also be listed here. In this chapter, there are no formulas that they're asking you to do. So basically, it's just a lot of vocabulary. Okay, they also put in what the main concepts for each section are, and in this case, if they had formulas, they would give you formulas here. All right, so take some time, read through Chapter 1, and use those vocabulary terms to answer questions in the homework. The other things that you're going to might be helpful for you to do is just to do some of the, when you come to an example, you try working the example out that they give here for each problem and look at the solutions, because in the example they'll also give you the solution. So if you look at the example first here for this example, then they give you the solution to the example below that. Okay, so it'll explain how if you do it as a practice, you have the solution there to see if you've done it right. Also on homework, when you're doing the problems, it'll tell you if it's right away. So that's also helpful. All right, so we're going to do frequency tables as our main emphasis in this problem set. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take some data and I'm going to create the table from the start. Sometimes they'll have a table made for you and they'll make these classes or intervals up for you. What we're going to do is go from the beginning, from the scratch, and build a frequency table. And then we're going to do everything that's listed here: frequency, relative frequency, cumulative frequencies. We'll do all of those in our chart from this data on problem 80 here in this practice problem. All right, so let's get started here. First of all, to create this, we have to make these intervals. Okay, we have to make the intervals. So what you do to do that, as I've started already, you have to go through the list and find the high number and the low number. So in this one, the high number is 31.7. I went through this list. I found it right here, 31.7, and I looked through the list and I found the low number is 16.3. It's in right here, fourth row. Okay. Also, I know that there's 10 crossed and 5 down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 50 numbers here. So 50 pieces of data. Okay, 50 data. Okay. So what we have to do is create the intervals. So to create the intervals, what we need to do is know how many intervals we want. So like in this chart, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The standard normal is from 5 to 7. Okay, so you can go more than 7, but you shouldn't go less than 5. So what we're going to do for this one is we're going to stick with 5 because it's going to be easier for me to make fewer intervals. But, you know, it's going to look a little bit different if there's 6 or 7. So it's still correct if you choose 6 or 7. So to do this, what we need to do is take the, to create these, we have to find the width of the interval, right? The width of the interval. And this one, the width is 4. Actually, it's 5, 40 to 45. So the width is 5 there. So what we want to do is just do that here using the high and low. So we take 31.7 minus 16.3 and we divide by how many we want. In this case, I want to do 5 intervals or classes. They're also called classes. Okay, so we take our calculator, we compute that out. Let's see what that is. 31.7 minus 16.3, 31.7 minus 16.3, I get 15.4. We're going to divide that by 4 or 5. We get 3.08. So this is 3.08. All right. Now, since the numbers have 1 decimal, we have to go to 1 decimal place. So I'm going to round this up to 3.1 because that's we have 1 decimal place. If these numbers were whole numbers, then we just have to go to the whole number. I could round down to 3 or 4. But in this case, since the numbers have 1 decimal place, we need to go with 1 decimal place in our answer. All right, so that means we're going to go with, we're going to start with 16.3 is our first class. So we're going to put our classes here. 16.32, and then we add 3.1 to that, right? And that goes, usually that goes right below here. So that the next class starts 3.1 later, so that's going to be 19.4. Okay, and then we add 1, or we add another 3.1. So we're going to get 22.5. Right, we add 3.1 to 19.4. Right, okay, and then we add 3.1 again. So we're going to get 25.6. And then we're going to get, at 3.1, we get 28.7. And then our, let's say we go one more so that we know what the high number is. I'm not going to really use this so much because we already have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? But if we add 3.1 to this, we're going to get 31, right? 0.9 or 8, sorry, 31.8, right? Now our high number was 31.7, which is good here because this interval is going to end at 31.7. This interval is going to end at 28.6 because it's 1 less than that one. This interval is going to end at 25.5. This interval is going to end at 22.4. This interval is going to end at 19.3. Okay, so those are my classes. that I created from this data set, and I have 5 of them. All my data fits in there. This is really not necessary. We just use it as a reference to create that. Now what I need to do is just do my frequency. So what I normally do here is I have to go through and just count, right? So we go through the list and we find all of the ones and we just put them in here. Usually I usually use like cross marks for these. So I might have to have more room here. Let's do undo here. Okay, so frequency, we're going to just put in marks here. So 24 would go here. So I'm going to mark 1 here. 24.3 also goes in this. 25.9 goes here. 19.8 goes, or 18.9, sorry. 27.5, 27.5, 17.9, 21.8, 20.9, 16.7, it's 27.3, 0.3. So that should give us 10. 3, yeah, 4. Okay, that's 10 so far, right? So we just keep going down the list until we have all of the numbers. So in the next row is 18. So that's another number here. 24.7, 24.7, 20 even goes here. 22.6 goes here. 23.9, 23.9 goes here. 18 goes here. 31.4 goes here. 22.3 goes here. 24 goes in this spot. 25.5 goes here. Then we're moving down to the next row. So we do this, right, for the whole thing. So we do that and then we write down the frequency for this. So I'm just going to use what I have here. We're going to do the first 20 numbers for purpose of getting this finished in the short amount of time. So my frequency here is 5, 4, 7, 3, and 1. Okay, relative frequency is the number divided by the total here. And since I only did 2 rows, my total is 20. So 5 over 20 is relative frequency. 4 over 20 is relative frequency. 7 over 20 is relative frequency. 3 over 20 and 1 over 20. That's relative frequency. The cumulative frequency is adding up the frequency. So first one is 5 because we didn't add anything, and the next one's 5 plus 4, which is 9, and the next one is 9, which is the previous one, plus 7, which is 16, and then 16 plus 3, which is 19, and then 19 plus 1 is 20. So we should end up with how many we have in the total here, but for cumulative. And then cumulative relative frequency is just adding the fractions up. So basically these numbers, since they're that, would be over 20. So if we're going to do relative cumulative frequency, we'd go 5 over 20 plus 4 over 20 plus 7 over 20. So basically it's going to be these numbers divided by 20 for cumulative relative frequency. Okay, now the classes, we have 5 classes here. This is the first class, second class, third class, fourth class, fifth class. This is the lower bound of the first class. This is the upper bound of the first class. This is the lower bound of the second class. This is the upper bound for the second class. The upper bound for the last class is 31.7. The lower bound for the last class is 28.7. Okay, so that's going to tell us what we're doing there. Okay, so that's generally what happens in a frequency table. Okay, from raw data. Okay, and you can answer questions about it then. You can find probabilities based upon that. All right. Well, good luck. Take a look at the homework. If you have questions, email me.